Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our third and final training. My name is Gabby, if you haven't met me yet, and I am one of the Benefits Outreach Coordinators here on the Outreach team. We are joined by Marlene, our Volunteer Helpline Coordinator, and Justine, who is the other Benefits Outreach Coordinator. Today, we're going to review a couple of things, mostly focusing on our call software program called Five9. I'm sure you've heard us mention this in the previous trainings, but we're going to go into it in detail. And Five9 is how we receive and make outgoing phone calls on the MANNA Food Helpline. In just a bit, I will hand it over to Marlene and Justine where we will review the following information today. So we are going to go into detail about what Five9 is. We're going to chat about the equipment that we use, such as the MANNA laptops, certain headsets that we need to use. We'll discuss personal laptops as well. We're going to discuss some terminology, such as what are the users within the software called. We'll discuss different seats or agent seats, which again will make sense much later. And then we will also define a few acronyms pertaining to this work within this program. After a short break, we will do a few simulations to demonstrate and discuss the various protocol that we follow when working within Five9. Other than that, I believe that is our full agenda. So I will hand it over to Marlene Champagne.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I'll share my screen here and let me give you a little bit of background here while I'm doing that. Um, get it to minimize here just a second. So to give you a little bit of background about Five9, Five9 is our web-based software that basically it's the platform from where we make calls and receive calls to allowing us to interact with our clients. And so um, Gabby mentioned about equipment. We have MANNA laptops, we have headsets. You can actually work through a headset or without. When I operate from home, I don't use a headset. It works perfectly fine with the computer. But so the home-based agents have laptops, MANNA laptops, and headsets if they choose. And we also have a provision here in the office in a downstairs space for a volunteer to work as well as upstairs. And so she also mentioned the different, a couple of different terms that we use in referring to our volunteers. And for purposes of this program, well, we have a packet specialist, and the packet specialist is responsible for getting the applications together and these packets out to the clients. And then we have actually an agent who processes the food stamp application, goes through an interview process, completes the application, notifies the packet specialist. That's their primary role, is to focus on the applications themselves. And then we have the fielder position. And the fielder position is very important as well, because a fielder essentially, just like an agent, can receive calls, make calls. They primarily make calls, and I'll walk you through that process in a little bit. And so the primary role of the fielder then is to act kind of like a screening agent, so that because oftentimes a client might call just with a simple question, perhaps they need a referral to a resource, a food pantry, and the fielder can easily take care of that. An agent who has to process a food stamp application requires a lot more extensive training. So that frees up the agent to focus on food stamp applications. So that's basically the role of the fielder. And Gabby also mentioned seats. In Five9, we refer to these as seats. So a seat is essentially the platform from which an agent or a fielder operates. So we have, I believe now, 6 seats. And only one individual can occupy that seat at a time. And it's from that seat, or that login position, if you will, that agent or that fielder then makes calls or receives incoming calls. So we have them assigned to specific volunteers. And we also have a seat that's, reserved exclusively for our Spanish speakers. And then the last point I'd like to make is a little bit about acronyms. I'll try not to use acronyms as we go through this, but there's a couple of them that you might hear us using frequently. One is SNAP, and that's just the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Typically, it's basically food stamps. We refer to it as food stamps. And you might often hear us use the term app. And when we say app, we're referring to an application or a food stamp application. So at this point, I'd like to see if I can transfer over and show you if I can get my screen to collapse here, to actually walk you through the process of, there we go. I think we're getting it. The login process with Five9. Can everybody see my screen? There we go.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so the initial thing, now one thing that's kind of unique about Five9 is we have to log in through Chrome. Now on my particular, I'm not using my personal laptop here, but you have to log in through Chrome. On my particular laptop, I have a shortcut. So for purposes here, let's see here, log in Five9. So it automatically comes up on my computer with the shortcut. So I think this should work out. Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I can expand my screen here. So I'm going to log in. Now, Fielder would typically log in as Agent 5. I'm not going to do that here this morning because I actually have a Fielder occupying that seat this morning. So I don't want to bump him off. So I'm going to log in as Agent 3, which is typically the regular agent seat. So you see, when you come here and you see this, it's automatically populated with the username and password. So I'm going to log in. And the next screen that comes up, you don't have to worry about anything on this screen. You're basically just going to focus right over here at the top left under agent. And when you click on that little drop down, you'll have two selections there, web and desktop. And so you always want to select web. And the key thing here is when this next screen comes up, and it usually doesn't take very long, when the next screen comes up, you'll want to, and it's just kind of very user friendly, and you just roll through the screens until you get to the ultimate destination here. You see it's automatically populated, soft phone, it's already got the station ID, you don't have to worry about that. When you click on next, what you're listening for now is 3 beeps. And these 3 beeps are an indication that you've made a successful connection. Taking, yep, there we go, 3 beeps. Okay, so at this point, and again, you don't have to, the setup is already there. You don't have to worry about anything else. The next thing you're going to click on is view my dashboard. And the dashboard is essentially, I like to think of it like the driver's seat. This is where all the action happens. So this is where you can receive calls and you can make calls. Now, the very first thing that I'd like to show you, because this is our first priority, is the voicemail process. And we make that a first priority because when a client leaves us a voicemail, these are the clients that are actively trying to reach us. So we want to try and contact them first before we do anything else. So I'm going to go over here to the left side of my screen and I'm going to click on voicemail. And if you look down here at the bottom, it says personal voicemails. So I'm going to click on personal voicemails and you see that I have several right there in the queue. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so let's just select this one as an example. So I've selected this voicemail and then I want to click on the voicemail. And when I click on that voicemail and just click once, in the past when I was doing this, I'd click on it a couple of times and then I wasn't able to listen to the message. So when you click on this voicemail once, then it pulls up this screen. It shows you again, there's the phone number from the client. And what you want to do at this point is you want to play their message. Now you see here there's a little note, and this happens to be a note from one of our agents. It says client at work requested a call Thursday 7/22, that's today around noon. I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button, see if we can actually hear a message. I will tell you this, that sometimes the message might not be clear. Sometimes a client doesn't actually leave a message. Obviously, if they do, that's very helpful. So you always want to try to play it. But the good news is that even if you can't understand the message or the client didn't leave one, you can always just call them, based on the number. So let's hit the play button, see if we can hear a message. Okay, so in that case, yeah, we could definitely hear the message. So I'm going to now one key point
Hey,
that I'd like to
Marlene.
make. Yes.
I don't think that the voicemail was coming through to the rest of us on the training. So can you just kind of explain what you heard in the voicemail?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Um, yeah, Justine just informed me that I could hear the message, you all couldn't hear it. So basically, this was a client giving his name and his number and telling me that he was interested in applying for food stamps and asking us to give him a call back. So in which case, obviously I would go ahead and I'm going to talk you through actually what it looks like to make a call. The other thing I would mention to you at this point is I always like to, whether I'm receiving calls or making calls, checking the voicemails, I always like to keep a pen and pad handy so that I can jot down a few notes. That's always very helpful. And sometimes the clients will leave you a lot of information too on the voicemail message, so you want to be able to capture that. The one key point, and again, I'm going to go through the process of, actually calling the client here in a little bit. But the one key point that I'd like to mention here with the voicemail messages is that when you are done, once you have handled this client, taken care of this client, you want to make sure you see where my icon is here, delete voicemail. You want to make sure you delete that voicemail from the queue. And this is important so that we don't have duplication of effort. If it's still in the queue, another agent might come back on or a fielder and actually call that person again. So that's how we handle the voicemail component. At this point, let me go ahead and go back over to the I'm going to go over to the call screen, and we're going to take you through a couple of different scenarios here. The first scenario being that oftentimes when we call a client, we may not necessarily be able to reach them. So there's a couple of scenarios in when you're calling a client. Obviously, if you reach them, that's one possibility. Another possibility is if you call a client and there's no answer, maybe the line is busy, they've been disconnected, the mailbox is full, the mailbox is not set up. So in this case, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to call Justine so that you can actually, I'm going to punch in her number here. And in this first scenario, she's not going to answer. And so I'm going to get a voicemail message, or rather, I'm going to get a voicemail message, and then I'll show you what to do with that one, and then I'll show you how we would handle it if we don't have a voicemail message. So in this case, okay, so here's her number, 606 547 2022. And I'm going to put myself, if you look over here at the top left of the screen, you'll see that I'm in a not ready status. You can actually receive calls in a not ready status, but in order to make a call, you always want to be in a ready status. And you notice the green, it goes green. That means we always want to be in that green status, ideally though, because that allows us to make calls, and it also allows us, the client, when they call in, to leave a voicemail message if that line is tied up. So when you're occupied, doing administrative type things, then obviously you would want to put yourself, there's several options here, but put yourself in a break status. So I'm now in a ready status. I'm ready to call Justine, so let's go ahead and dial her and see what happens here. Hi, Justine. This is Marlene Champagne calling from the MANNA Food Helpline. We received an online request from you for some food assistance, and I'm just reaching out to see how we might be helpful. Feel free to give us a call back. Our number is 800-820-1109. I'll leave you my cell number as well. It's 828-782-8322. And either way, if you call us back and we don't pick up right away, please leave a message and we'll get back with you just as soon as we can. Thanks so much and have a great day. Okay, so now I've ended the call. Over here on the left side, you saw me click on end call. And so now at this point, there's a couple of key things to point out. If you go over here to the right side of the screen, you'll see worksheet, and then just above it, you'll see set disposition. Now, the system is set up so that we need to, with one exception, I'll talk about that in a minute, we need to respond to these worksheet questions before we can set a disposition. And the reason why the worksheet is important is because the worksheet is where we capture all of our data from these phone calls that we're receiving and making. That's important for me in particular because I do the reports every week. And so here's where I get the data from. Now, what I'll do with the worksheet, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go ahead and roll through the whole worksheet just so you can see what it looks like. But as I go through, I'm going to point out, in this case, when I'm leaving a message, the key fields that you'll want to focus on. And you don't need to worry about memorizing this. We have a nice little protocol applicable to each of our positions that makes it very easy, very simple, very basic. So the first thing we want to capture that's important is how did you hear about our program? The vast majority, and I'll click on this little drop down, you can see that there's quite a number of choices here. The vast majority of our clients come from what's called Google Snap. And just to explain briefly about Google Snap, if a client is in need of food assistance and they Google food assistance, then they have a form to fill out, and these requests go into Feeding America, and then Feeding America channels these down to the appropriate food bank. And so at any rate, we make the appropriate selection. In this case, it's Google Snap. Then we go to the next one, and the next one, we need to plug in her last name. So it's Redden. And then the next one will be her first name, Justine. Oops, let me back up here a little bit. There we go. Justine. All right, and it's automatically going to populate with today's date. Now here's the next one in the lineup. You don't have to worry about this. This is exclusively for completing an agent completing an app. So we're going to skip that one. We're going to skip the next one, skip the next one, skip the zip code, skip the race and ethnicity question. These are all questions for agents completing applications. Now, when we get to county, county is important to plug in because we want to know which counties we're reaching here. So Justine happens to be right here in Buncombe County. So I'm going to select Buncombe County. And then if you'll notice here, we have two drop downs for counties. That's because we couldn't get them all on one list. Again, next question. This is an agent question. So we can skip over that one. Now, you'll see where date of birth comes in. It automatically populates today's date. It's not a deal breaker if you forget this, but ideally it's nice if you can remember just to delete that so that I don't have to delete it on the report. But again, that would be a question for an agent completing an application. You don't have to worry about this question. That's an agent question. Skip that one. Here's another one that's important. So you'll want to put in your name, and that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, if we have a question, we know who to go to, and number two, we kind of can get a feel for the workload for each person occupying a seat, be it staff or be it a volunteer. So then again, the rest of these questions will all be pertinent to the agents completing an app. So you don't have to worry about any of these other questions. And I'm going to pause here for just a second before I hit finish. So to just recap what you're focusing on. You're focusing on how the client heard about us, number one. Number two, the client's first and last name. Number three, your own name. Number four, and the county. And I think I've captured everything. And so again, we have that all in our protocol so that you don't have to worry about remembering all that, and it'll become second nature to you. So now at this point, now that I've answered all the applicable questions, now I can go ahead and hit finish, and now I'm able to set a disposition. Now, if you look here at the dispositions, there's several choices. I'm going to talk about other here in a moment. You don't have to worry about research or application as a fielder. That's something that only an agent would do. We're going to show you a question and referral here in a moment. In this case, I've left a message. So I want to select left message, and that's it. So now the system has captured the activity from that phone call. So now, once again, I'm still in a ready status because I have no other follow-up to work to do with this particular call. So now, at this point, I'm going to show you, I'm going to switch over to our Google Snap call list so that you can see what this looks like. Okay, so at this point, just to show you, I wanted to bring you over to the Google Snap call list. This is located in Teams, what we call Teams, which is a platform where we store a lot of information. Actually, there's a couple of key things here in Teams. Number one is this Google Snap call list, which I'm going to talk to you about here just a little bit. And it's also a place where we can go to phone agent resources and access food pantry lists and just a wealth of resources that a client might need assistance with. But for purposes right now, I just want to show you this list. Now, this spreadsheet, it's pretty massive. Basically, what happens when these Google Snaps come to us in the form of a list from Feeding America, they come in every day, twice a day, 6 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, including Saturdays and Sundays. And so when they come in, it's my responsibility to go ahead and capture those from the email. You look way over here on the left side of the screen, they'll come in under email. I will lock those lists and get them into my assign box, and from there I'll forward them to my own email, do a copy paste, and get them into this spreadsheet. So that's nothing you really have to worry about. That's how they get here. And so if you look at here at the spreadsheet, you'll see off to the left, there's a date. The date, a client's first name, client's last name. Typically, they have an email address. And so one of the functions that I perform as well, once I get this list copied and pasted into this spreadsheet, if you look over here to the right, you'll see, and if I were to scroll down here, let's see if I can scroll down. Let me scroll down. At any rate, if I were to scroll down over here, you would see email. This final column would have email in it. And that's because I email these clients first thing so that they have an immediate response from us. It gives basically our phone number, the services that we can provide, and so forth. And then what we do when we make a call is we'll update that column. So we've got a client phone number here. We have zip codes. I'll point out a couple things just real quickly. I don't want to get too much down into the weeds right now, but we do have some clients from another region, and we have a map that indicates that as well as a list from Second Harvest Northwest. There's Second Harvest Northwest, Second Harvest Metrolina. Essentially, we can help anybody in the state of North Carolina beyond just our 16 counties here in Western North Carolina. But the Second Harvest Food Bank has, I want to say 17 counties that they are now set up to handle themselves with their own helpline. So I'm looking at one right here, and I have these memorized just because I've been doing these for so long. This is Guilford County. So in this case, we'd indicate, as you see here, if I slide over a little bit, you can see that that's already been annotated, not in our service area. And you don't have to worry about that because they're automatically going to get this client and take care of that client. You might also, oftentimes we'll see, and just below it, ironically, here's one from South Carolina. Again, we can't assist a client in South Carolina. but we do have a standard little blurb that we can send them in an email as to how that they can get help. So we're kind of routing them in the right direction. So and then I think that's basically it here. You will see this a comments column. Sometimes a client will leave a lot of information. Sometimes it'll be very basic. I think the formatting has changed a little bit on the spreadsheet. If we get down towards the end of the spreadsheet where you can't necessarily see the whole comment, and that's you can simply double click on the comments column and it allows you to read everything. Now, one other key thing that I'll point out right here on this particular column where they're asking for a specific callback time, unfortunately, given the volume that we're dealing with right now, we just simply can't accommodate that. Number one, and number two, you have a tendency, you might be able to miss a client this way. If you say, oh, well, this client doesn't want to call back right now while I'm on shift, I'll just skip over them and go on to the next one. We don't want to do that. Then we got to play cleanup. It's best to just go ahead and call the client. Then if they do want a specific time to call back, say for an application or whatever, then certainly that can be forwarded to me and I can make that happen. So I just wanted to point that out. So there's our Google Snap call list. Let me go ahead and minimize this because I want to um, show you how hypothetically, if I call a client and let's say there's just nothing there, no response at all, no voicemail, um, and so I want to tell you how to show you how I'm going to then dispose of that. Make that disposition because it is different than the one that I just did. So in this case, Justine, maybe I'll go ahead and call your number again, and then as soon as your phone rings, if you just hang up right away, then we don't get the voicemail message. Will that work?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
this scenario, you're leaving me another voicemail?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to leave you a voicemail. When I'm going to dial the number, when you hear it ringing, you just hang up right away before it has a chance to pick up.
Okay,
Okay?
gotcha.
Okay. All right, here we go. So see that now there's an example, okay? Now this is an example, obviously, of a client that didn't pick up, but in this case, this can apply to several situations. Number one, the caller's been disconnected, like I said, no mailbox set up, mailbox full, whatever. Okay, so now this is what we call an other. So, and when I do the report, I'll sort for all the others and I just delete them. We don't even worry about capturing that because we haven't had any successful client contact. So the call's already been ended. I don't have to worry about that. So this is the one exception where we don't have to worry about the worksheet at all. Rather, we would just go up here to the disposition and we would select other. So that takes care of that. That's a done deal. Now we need to transfer over to the final portion of this training session, and that is where we're actually going to interact with the client. We're going to have some client contacts here. So in this case, we're going to have three different scenarios. In the first one, Justine will call representing a client, and she's going to ask about perhaps a food pantry resource or a food resource, some other type of resource. And then the next one, she'll call and ask, she'd like to actually do an application. And then the final question would be, she'll call a third time, just perhaps with some kind of off the wall type of question, which we, often typically get. So at this point, what I want to do right now is I'm actually in, you can see again, I'm in a ready status. So I can receive calls. So Justine's going to call me right now and we'll go through that first scenario with you.
Sorry, I accidentally called Manna proper.
That's
Calling
okay.
the helpline now.
That's okay. This is Marlene with MANNA Helpline. How can I help you?
Hi, Marlene. My name is Justine, and I have a family of four, and we live in Henderson County, and we receive food stamps, but it just isn't quite enough to get us through the whole month. So I'm just wondering if there is any other way we can get food.
Yes, actually, there's a couple of different options for you outside of the food stamps. Number one, we have a lot of food pantries in Henderson County, and we also have what's called a YMCA mobile kitchen that visits. There's like four different counties here in a nearby proximity, and Henderson happens to be one of them. So we have a schedule for them as well. Would either or both of those be helpful for you?
If you could send me both of those, that would actually be great.
Okay. Now, there's one of two ways we can get those to you. We can certainly pop those in the mail, or we can email them to you as well. Do you have a preference?
Um, let's do hard copy. That way I have constant access to it.
Okay. All right, Justine, then what I'll need your first and last name and a good mailing address for you.
Okay, so it can be addressed directly to me. So Justine Redden, that's
Uh-huh.
Redden,
Mm-hmm.
and mailing address is 627 Swananoa River Road
Mm-hmm.
in Hendersonville
Uh-huh.
with a zip of 28801.
Okay, got it. All right, Justine. So yeah, we'll get these in the mail to you right away, and when we send them out to you, I'll also include my business card in with the mailing, so it has my cell number on it. So if you have any questions, you can just feel free to call me directly. Okay? Are there any other questions I can answer for you right now?
That's it. But I'll save your all's number, and if I have any trouble or any questions with the list, then can I give you guys a call back?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we'd certainly be happy to have you do that. And
Okay,
Justine,
awesome.
one other thing, let me mention real quickly before I forget. Um, when we do send you this list, and we have a little note, it'll be on the mailing that we send you, but I'll mention it right now. When you do get these lists, be sure to call them. The phone numbers are on there already on the list that we'll send you, but be sure to call them in advance just to make sure that we try very hard to keep these updated, but just to make sure their hours are still in effect and that sort of thing. Okay, and any particular requirements. Okay.
Okay, cool. So when I call them, they'll let me know like what the
Yes.
process is, if I can just show
Yep.
up, if I need to schedule an appointment.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Very important. Okay, Justine.
Okay.
Well, you take care. Thank you so much for calling our helpline. You have a great day.
Thanks, Marlene. You too. I really appreciate your help.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye bye now.
Bye.
Okay, so in this case, Justine has called and she's asked for some resources food pantry resource. Henderson County happens to be a county that we also can provide some additional food resources, as I mentioned, the YMCA mobile kitchen. And so we're going to mail those to her. And so what the fielder would then want to do would be, well, first of all, before I get to that action, let me go over here to the worksheet. Now, on the worksheet again, and this is something I was remiss. I should have asked Justine how she heard about us because that's important. Sometimes you forget that, but eventually it becomes second nature. So in this case, let's just say hypothetically that she heard about us from a friend. So I'm going to say word of mouth. And then here again, I've made contact with the client with Justine. So I'm going to put in her last name, Redden, and then I'm going to put in her first name, Justine. Okay. And then today's date automatically populated. Again, we're not worried about this question or this one or this one or the zip code. Now, again, she gave me her zip code with her mailing address, but we don't need that for these purposes, only for an application. We're not worried about this question. I am wanting to capture the county. So I'm going to go over here to Henderson County, select Henderson County, skip the next county, skip this one. Again, date of birth, I'm going to take that out. We don't need that information right here. We can skip that question. And I'm going to be sure to put my name here, Champagne. Okay, there we go. And again, the remaining questions are strictly for an agent completing an application. So now I'm finished. I'm going to select finish. Now in this case, I spoke with the client, and this is what's called a referral. I've referred her to a food pantry, YMCA mobile kitchen. I've referred her to resources. So I'm going to select referral, and that's the disposition. Now, at this point, let me just see if I can, I'd like to show you um, where we can actually access this information. Do we need to, let me just ask my teammates here, Justine and Gabby, do we want to go into that now at this point before we do the other two calls as far as
Um, So Megan's portion that
is already,
is recorded, she really gets into Teams
okay,
and how to access the resources.
okay.
I would show folks how to email the packet specialist the information that you just got to send out the pantry list.
Okay. Okay. So I won't go into the actual, since that's covered in a later portion, the actual Teams portion where you can access those resources. But let me pull up here the email. And so in this case, I'm going to send the packet specialist an email, and I'm going to let the packet specialist know. If I just click an H here, it automatically populates the packet specialist. And I'm going to say, and I usually like to do be a little specific when I send these requests to the packet specialist. So food pantry list for Justine Redden, and and I do this because this helps a lot of times when you might have to do a search for a client. I always like to have the name in the subject line if you can remember to do that. And so then I would just simply say, you can make it real simple. Please send Justine the following. Okay. And in this case, I'm going to say Justine, oops, good grief, not used to this computer. Okay. So she needs a Henderson County food pantry list. And she also needs a YMCA mobile kitchen schedule. Okay, and then down here, I'm going to list her address, Justine Redden. Okay, and then I've got her address down here, which is 627 Swannanoa River Road, and that's in Hendersonville. Hendersonville, North Carolina, zip code 28801. Now, the other thing that's very helpful here too, for the agent or for the packet specialist, is if you can capture the clients, and sometimes I know we don't always remember to do this, but I've tried to get in the habit of doing this, is to list the client's phone number as well. Just in case there's a glitch, we can always go back and we know what that client's phone number is. So 2022, and that's really the basic information that these packet specialists will need. They know exactly what Justine needs. They've got her address, they've got her phone number, and then we can just send. And I'm going to go ahead and send it because I know John's up there right now, and he'll know that that's just a training call. So let me go back here to my Five9 screen. And at this point now, we're going to go through an actual call from Justine where she's a client that's going to request a food stamp application. Okay, Justine. Good morning. This is Marlene with the MANNA Food Helpline. How can I help you?
Hi, Marlene. My name is Justine, and I am currently homeless. I'm staying at the A Hope shelter in downtown Asheville, and my caseworker said that you all might be able to help me apply for food stamps.
Yes, we can certainly do that. We'd be happy to help you do that. And in addition, provide you any other resources that we can. Justine, what is a good number to reach you?
You can reach me at area code 606-547-2022.
Okay. Now, I've got agents on the line all day today. Is this a good time to call you back?
Yeah, I'll be around all day, so anytime is fine.
Okay, okay, great. So Justine, yes, I'll have right now I have an agent online. Her name is Mary Lou. She's very, very good. She'll be happy to help you. I'm going to send her a note and let her know that you'd like a phone call for some assistance with food stamps. And just know that that number that you'll see on your phone will be our 800 number, the same number that you just called, okay?
Okay, gotcha. So she is going to call me back later today.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm going to send her a notice right now, and she will call you back just as soon as she can, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah,
Oh,
I've never really had to do this before, so I'm not really sure what the process is or how to do it. So
mhm.
I really appreciate your all's help.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you called, and that's a frequent situation that we hear, and frankly, that's why we created the helpline so that we can help folks to apply for food stamps in an easy, fast way, as opposed to having to call DSS and perhaps even go in person. That's been different, of course, with COVID. That isn't always possible, and for folks without transportation and so forth. So our helpline makes it nice and easy for you. And the agent, as she helps you to do this application, she'll also explain exactly what you need to do, next steps and so forth, and what you can expect as far as getting your food stamps and getting your EBT card and getting some help here in a nice, quick way for you. Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're so welcome. Justine, you take care. You have a great day, and we'll be in touch with you momentarily, okay?
Okay, thanks, Marlene. I
You,
look forward to hearing from Mary Lou.
okay, all righty. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Okay, so Justine has just called in, and she would like to do an application for food stamp benefits. So now, in this case, now I'm going to need to notify the phone agent and let them know, just like I notified the packet specialist that we need to get this information out to Justine. Now we have a client who needs some assistance with the food stamp application. So in this case, the worksheet, and once again, I'm catching myself, asking how she heard about us.
I
So let's
disclosed that information already.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, through A Hope.
Okay, through AHOPE. So we can say in AHOPE, a MANNA partner agency, if I got that right. Because we partner a lot with AHOPE and particularly with homeless clients. So, okay, but that's an important point though. The client oftentimes will tell you that, but if they don't tell you that, it's always a good practice to make that a first question. How did they hear about us? Okay, so same thing. Here we're going to go ahead. We have client contact, so we're going to enter her last name, Redden. First name is Justine. Okay, and then today's date automatically populates. We're not worried about these next questions or the zip code, race. Okay, now county, Justine is right here again in Buncombe County. So we're going to select Buncombe County. And then skip over that one. Again, the date of birth, we're going to take that one out. And then we skip this question. I'm going to put my name in here, Champagne. And then the rest of the questions, again, we can skip over the rest of the questions to the very end. and then select finish. And in this case, I've also made a referral. Before, I was referring Justine to a food pantry and some other food resources. Now this is a referral because it's a referral for a food stamp application. So I'm going to select referral. And now, and this is probably a good place to show you this, I'm going to put myself a little break status here. I want to do, it's a similar action. I'm going to go over here back to my email, and I'm going to send to phone agent. I'm going to send them an app request. And remember, I mentioned the acronym before, app. We use that as an abbreviation for application. So app request for, and again, I like to put in the client's name here for Justine Redden. And then what I would do here is I like to provide whatever information that I can to the agent is always helpful. So I would say, please call Justine for an app, and then I might add some additional information that she gave me. She's homeless, calling from A Hope. And she's homeless and calling from A Hope. Okay, so, and then again, I'm going to give Justine's phone number, 606 547 2022. Okay, so that's your basic information that and if you have any other information, obviously the agent's going to know, calling here from A Hope, that she's here right here in Buncombe County. But this is important to kind of give the agent a little clue that we're dealing with a client who is homeless, who's right here in Buncombe County, and most likely will have an expedited application. So that's basically it for the application notification. So now I'm going to send this to the phone agent, and then the phone agent in turn will reach out to Justine and help her to complete a food stamp application. So I'm going to send it, and again, my agent will know that that's just for training purposes, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. So now we're on to the third and final scenario, and that's where we're going to have, and I need to put myself in ready status here again. That's where we're going to have Justine call with perhaps something that's not so straightforward, like a food pantry list or an app request, and we'll go through how to handle that. Good morning. This is Marlene with the MANNA Food Helpline. How can I help you?
Hi, Marlene. So my mom kicked me and my daughter out of her house, and I was on her food stamp application, and I am now living with my fiance's mom, and I want to get my own food stamps.
Okay. And so, Justine, if I understand correctly, that when you were living with your mother, she had you on her food stamp case. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what we need
I
to do.
couldn't get my own because I'm only 19 years old, but now I'm not living with my mom anymore, so I need to get my own.
Okay. Okay, good. And that's a good thing to know, because yeah, if you're only 19 and you were still living with her, you'd still have to be under your mother's application until you were 21. However, if you're now out on your own, residing on your own, yes, then we can certainly do a food stamp application for you. Now, here's what I would encourage you to do. Do you have a good relationship with your mom that you think she would actually contact DSS and to inform them that you're no longer living there?
It's a little dicey right now,
Yeah.
but I mean, if that's my only option and what we have to do, then I'm going to try it.
No, not necessarily, because we run into this actually fairly frequently. So here's what I would suggest we do. We'll go ahead. I'll get your information. I'll send a notice to one of our agents and have them contact you right away to complete an application for food stamps. And then I will let the agent know, give them a little bit of a heads up so they can have this conversation with you. Here's from my experience what I would do in this situation. Go ahead and complete the application for food stamp benefits. And then it's a routine part of the process is that once you sign and date and get your documents and mail them into the DSS office, that you contact the DSS office to request to do an interview. A lot of this has changed with COVID. Some of the counties have waived that requirement. Some of them are continuing to do the interviews, but it's a pretty simple process. It's something you can do right over the phone. And the purpose is just to see if DSS has any questions or they need any additional information. This would be an ideal time to address this with Buncombe DSS. They are very, very good here. And I would just be very forthright in telling them what your situation is, that you were residing with your mother. She had you on her food stamp application, probably still does. And you need to come off of that, of her case and essentially establish one of your own now that you're residing on your own. And then they can work it from their end so that you don't have to worry about getting involved in that piece of it, because obviously you can only be on one case at a time, and then that's the appropriate way to handle that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And since I'm now residing with my fiance's mom, me and my fiance, we actually don't really share a food budget. We kind of do our own thing with food, and then I'm responsible for providing food for myself if I stay with his mom. So how does that work with the application?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because in this case, she's not your biological parent, and when we talk about I'll often ask the question, is it only you in the household? And clients will tell me, well, I have living with roommates or whatever. But the definition of household for our purposes for food stamps is food household. So in other words, a food household is if you buy, prepare, and eat your food separately or together. So it sounds to me like in your current situation that you and your fiance and your daughter's included in your unit here, that you're buying your own food, you're preparing your own food, and you're eating your own food separately from his mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And him as well, for the most
And
part.
him as well. Yeah, and him as well. So in which case, that would be the separate application. So in other words, what I'm saying here is you wouldn't, obviously, his mother would not be included on the application. And there is actually a portion on the application itself that asks that question. And at that point, we would list who's all in your food household. So essentially it would be you, your fiance or your boyfriend, and your daughter, your child. And then it asks the question, are there others, in residing in the same, under the same roof, something to that effect. And then we could just list in that spot, his mother, and so that it indicates that yes, you might all physically be living in the same house, but for food purposes, you're a separate household. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So it's just going to be me and my daughter, and you all can help me apply and help me with the application.
Yeah.
So how do I do that part?
Okay, so that part is when we have, and here's what's going to happen. I'll send a notification to an agent, and one of our agents will call you back. Is this a good time for them to call you today?
Yeah, I'm not working right now, so I should be around my phone all day.
Okay, good. Now, the phone call will come in from the same 800 number that you just called, so just be aware of that. The agent will call you, and it shouldn't take very long at all. I'm guessing maybe around 15 minutes or so, 20 at the most. And what will happen is that agent will do this application, complete the application for you right over the phone. So essentially, They'll get you and your daughter registered into the system. We'll ask you like a few questions. We call it like a mini eligibility interview. Then they'll go over to the application. They'll pull that application up. Most of the information carries over from the interview. They'll just review it with you quickly to make sure everything is complete and accurate so that you don't have any issues. And then they'll explain the process to you from there, which basically is just sending you a little checklist of the items that you'll want to include, reminding you to contact DSS, which is going to be really important in this case because this situation is a little bit unique with your mother having you on the case, on her case before, and likely still does. But anyway, that information will all come to you in the form of a packet where we will indicate where you need to sign and date and what you'll need to include, and we'll give you the information for contacting DSS, and we'll provide you with whatever resources are available for you as well. How old is your daughter?
She's 2.
Okay, she's 2. So then you would, we can include that, and the agent will discuss that with you. There's a program called WIC, Women and Infant Children, and that's a great program. I believe the cutoff, I think, is 4 years old, so they can provide some additional assistance, in your case as well. So there's just a wealth of resources that we can help you with. And again, aside from completing the application with you, the agent will, they're all very, very well versed in all the resources that we have available. So the agent will discuss that with you as well, and answer any questions that you might have. Are there questions I can answer for you right now?
I mean, you answered everything I have right now. I guess next, should I just wait on a call from the
Yes.
agent?
Yes, just wait on a call from our agent. I'm going to, as soon as I hang up from this phone call, I'm going to send them a notification right away, and with your name and your phone number and a little bit of background that you've shared with me, so that they'll be very well prepared to assist you, and then they'll be able to take care of that for you today.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we don't really have anything right now, so any help is very, very much so appreciated.
Okay, that's great. And so then in the meantime, while we're working this application for you, the agent can provide you with some resources to get you some food, really quickly while you're waiting for this process to take place. I will say this, that if you don't have a source of income, they should consider it as an expedited application, which means that, where it normally can take up to 30 days, they should be able to process it for you within a week. So that should get you some help fairly quickly. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Justine. Well, listen, it was my pleasure talking with you, and I'll send the agent a note to give you a call just as soon as they can. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All
I'm
right.
really grateful for your help.
You're so welcome. You take care.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, so in this case, she is called with a question. Okay, so, and again, boy, this is tripping me up every time. Uh, she's called with a question, and I'm going to just select something else here to, let's say, for example, maybe she saw some of our marketing materials. So, so we know how she heard about us. I'm going to plug in her last name, Redden. Oops, I know how to spell it right. Redden. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to punch in her first name, Justine. Okay, and again, today's date. We don't have to worry about any of these questions. The agent will take care of all of these questions when they're going through and doing the application. We know Justine is right here in Buncombe County. And obviously, for any of these questions that you don't readily know the answer, you would want to ask the client. Okay, so we can skip over all of this. Again, we're taking out the date of birth. And then finally, the final question, I'm putting in my name, Champagne, okay, as the agent. And again, we can skip all of the rest of the questions to the very end and select finish. And in this case, the disposition would be question because,
Is it question? Sorry, Marlene, because you're going to end up referring the
yeah,
client to
yeah.
the agent. So
Yeah,
there was a lot of questions in there, but the ultimate
yeah,
action is referring them, right?
yeah. This is referral. That's correct. Yeah. So because we are referring for an app. So yeah, and that's a good point. So the the number one thing, I mean, all the data is important to capture, but the number one most important that we capture the applications that we do. And so, yeah, it is a referral. She's correct. So we're going to refer, we're going to select referral because again, we've referred her for an application, and I'm going to put myself in a break status here really quickly. And so then I would go through the same process as I showed you earlier. I would go to the email, I would send the phone agent. It's an app request for Justine Redden, and I would provide I would be really careful in this case to provide the information just to give her a heads up. And I'm sure Justine would discuss that with the agent anyway, but just to give her a heads up on what the situation is. That she is 19, but she is now residing on her own, that she has been, probably still is on her mom's food stamp case. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed with DSS. So we just want to give whatever little bits of information that are helpful in a snapshot to the agent in an email. And I think we've covered it.
Yeah, I have something to add about the scenario that we just went through. So, Marlene has been doing this for 7 years, so she was able to answer every single question that that client had. So, starting off as a fielder, you obviously are not going to know the ins and outs of how to answer questions that people in certain situations are in. So, in that case, if you don't know the answer to a question, all you have to do is ask if you can call the client right back, hang up, contact one of us, a staff member, and we can likely answer it for you. And then you can just call the client back and let them know. So I know it's scary to have somebody on the phone and you don't really know how to help them right then and there, but when in doubt, just ask if you can call back, get with a staff member, and then call the client again.
Yeah, thanks, Justine. That's a very, very good question. I have one of my recent new fielders, and she was, almost panicked. Oh my goodness, she's shadowing with another fielder, and oh, this fielder just knows the answer to every question. And the way I explained it to her is similar to what Justine just mentioned. Is, I've been doing this 7 years, and I'm still learning things that I didn't know from the beginning. So but the more you do it, the more familiar you'll become, and the more the answers will come readily. And like Justine just mentioned, the beauty of it is clients are just so grateful for the help. They're more than happy to have you say, hey, let me just get your name and number and let me check this out and I'll get back with you. They're just so appreciative to have the help. So don't feel there's just no way you can memorize all the possible questions or scenarios that they could possibly come up with. That's just going to come naturally. And there's always a way we can get it for you. So, yeah, I think it's a wrap.
All right, so this is where we will take a break or sum it all up. All
This
right,
is it.
this is it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We will get our contact information out to you with this recording. But other than that, we hope it was super helpful. And again, it's just going to come with time. It's going to take practice. Repetition is key. But all of the staff here on site are here to be your resources. And if you do plan to work remotely, and we will connect with you and create those virtual spaces for you to ask those questions and learn and shadow as well. So thank you very much, Marlene and Justine, for giving us the rundown of those simulations. It's certainly helpful to see it in action as someone who does it every day. Like, oh yeah, that is a good thing to say, or those are good things to do. So thank you very much. And yeah, we will connect with all of you guys soon. Bye
Thank
bye.
you all.
Bye.